You get to the end of a Pokemon game, and you're given the chance to hunt for a coveted roaming legendary Pokemon, often the most involved challenge of the entire game. If there's more than one running around, you're likely raising a team member just to get a working strategy against them because even the Master Ball can only take you so far in this endeavor. The problem is, in Gen 3, these encounters are freaking terrible. Even worse than I knew. Let me explain from the beginning. In Fire Red and Leaf Green, we get a chance encounter with Raikou if we started with Squirtle, Entei for Bulbasaur, and Suicune for Charmander. The problems with these start as soon as they're generated. To make sure their nature, stats, everything else is consistent across multiple encounters, they're generated upon inserting both the Ruby and Sapphire into the machine on Knot Island. Due to an oversight in the coding for the way these stats are stored and later copied, their stats are calculated incorrectly. The HP IV is generated normally and will be a 0 through 31 as is commonplace. But below that, their attack IV is incapable of being any higher than a 7, and their remaining IVs will always be 0! And yes, this affects Latios and Latias in Ruby and Sapphire as well. Nowadays, these 5 Pokemon have enjoyed status as competitive gods at various points, but back then, kinda just merely good. Still strong and all. I certainly got carried by the twins, but it's disappointing for sure when they could be so much more. I guess if you want a Pokemon that has all 0 IVs for sheer novelty, there's about a 1 in 250 chance of making that happen, and thus, pretty viable. What a great honor. But that's just for starters. There's a lot more wrong with these 5. The year was 2009. I had terrible mic quality and made tasteless jokes about Alakazam.
Hey everybody!
I played Pokemon Fire Red on my YouTube channel and kept not using my Master Ball, teasing that it would be useful for something later. I sat down to record the final video in the series, ran around until Entei appeared, decided I'd try and fight him legit before trying the Master Ball because I don't know! It used Roar turn 1 and he's gone. I couldn't find him again. I ran all over the region, checked the Pokedex, and nothing. It was like he didn't exist. It was like he was just a myth. It turns out, Fire Red and Leaf Green treats Roar ending the fight as a knockout, likely because this wasn't a concern during Ruby and Sapphire's development and the coding for moves was carried over. I saved and quit like a moron, guessing I'd figure it out later. After sitting down with the game a few days later and not being able to work this out, I look it up and see that this is a known bug in the game. Raikou and Entei both know Roar at the levels they're encountered at. With Suicune, it's no issue, it doesn't even know Roar, meaning that Charmander is objectively the best Pokemon to 100% the game with. Problem is, I already saved. It was too late for me. I was too embarrassed to own up to my mistake in 2009, so here I am owning up to it as a 34-year-old man. This is my life. What's so awful is that you would only even get to this fight if you were in the game for the long haul, and like me, you either saved not knowing what was going on and lost the encounter forever, or made sure to save the second you got your all zeros legendary unaware that it could be so terrible. To get another shot, you have to reach post-game all over again, and that's soul-crushing when you realize it. I didn't want to do it. I just finished playing this game in full thinking I was basically done. Let's say that you do want to fight it legit. Probably use soundproof or suction cups on a Pokemon. I guess a move like Taunt could be good. I say don't bother. Anything other than your Master Ball in turn 1 is not good enough. Thankfully, there's some workarounds we know of now for these 5 Pokemon. The IV glitch is fixed for Latios and Latias and Emerald, so that's good at least. The Eon Ticket Lati on Southern Island is not a roamer, and thus it generates normally in all the games. I've linked to a resource down in the description that allows the printing of the Eon Ticket for those who cannot deduct purchasing one on eBay from their taxes. For the beasts, just use Pokemon Coliseum. I'd like to give a shout out to Droomish for their video on this topic that goes into a little more detail on how the coding works. I wanted to make this video since 2010-ish, but they beat me to it and I didn't want to carbon copy everything they did. This was more about telling my story about this glitch than going into the technical minutia. I guess while we're here, let's finish those bios. Good God, my high school self's design skills were deplorable. This is why I started hiring professionals after this point. Raikou is an amazingly fast and free special attacker. Well, fast at least. It's probably the best use of your Thunderbolt TM, but outside of that, it gets no coverage. Seriously, you'll likely end up filling out the rest of the moveset with Thunder Wave and Body Slam because it just has nothing. Good luck getting your desired hidden power when the IVs are all zeros, I'll tell you what. It learns Calm Mind, and that's a necessity. It's just a real strong Thunderbolt that buffs up to brute force through stuff. Entei suffers from much of the same. It uses Flamethrower or Fire Blast well, has Calm Mind to buff up, and learns freaking nothing otherwise. At least Electric was only weak to ground. Fire just isn't a good enough type to make up for the shortcomings. It's got this big attack stat that's only good for using Dig and Return. Yeah, Entei is Flareon, but somehow worse in many ways. Pressure is also a pretty wasted ability on something that doesn't exactly stick around for long. Suicune fares a lot better. Its learn set is based on its updated moves from Crystal, and it gets the bread and butter Surf and Ice Beam to go with Calm Mind. Consider running Toxic or even Substitute to play off that tankiness, and it'll stick around PP stalling things like nobody's business. This defined Bulky Water in its day. About the only disappointment is that its speed is kind of sluggish compared to the other two, but it's a small price to pay. So yeah, don't bother hunting these guys in Gen 3. I am saving you from a misery I have lived with for many years. The series is finally whole and complete. Now you know why it was never followed up on. It was no more complicated than just being awkward and embarrassed as a teenager. I guess I'll see you guys later.